Welcome to Coffee with the Sarlos. We are your hosts of the show, Karen and Kelly Sarlo. Whether you're struggling with grief or you just need answers, we connect you with spirit to find relief, clarity, and direction in life. We can help you move forward.
Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
I'm going to jump right into our story this morning and name the client Marla.
Marla.
And for anybody listening for the very first time,
This is a fun throwback to a Marla in my childhood. We get to choose names because we keep confidentiality for our clients. I'm excited.
okay, I just remembered who your throwback is and what a
Just
lovely lady.
human being. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can see each other over FaceTime. And Marla says to me at the beginning, I just want you to connect with my mom, please. And I said, okay. So I said, Mom, where are you? Alive or dead? Because that has to be the first question because we get information about people who are alive and we are mediums. So I said, Mom, where are you? And she goes, I'm dead. And she says, and to start, you can also say that her dad's alive because I know you're looking for facts. And she says, you can say that she has 2 brothers. And you can say that and they're both alive, Karen. And you can say that she is married and that she has a daughter and 2 sons. So her and I have had the same children, the same amount, like in sex, right? A daughter each and 2 sons each. And she says, you can tell her that. Those are the facts. I know that's how you work. Go for it. And then I'll jump in and start saying more things to you. So I said to Marla, your mom's going to give facts. Remember in the consent process that I told you that I would give you facts and what I call messages. And she says, yep, I understand. And I said, okay, so these are your facts. So she goes, okay. So I gave her all of that. And she goes, yes, that's correct. Just like that. She goes, but does she have messages for me? And I said, well, Marla, I said, remember, we start with facts first. And she goes, oh, okay. Whatever, right, like this. But all of this is important. So then her mom says to me, she's anxious and she's depressed. But she's been anxious and depressed her whole life because of the environment that she grew up in with her father and I. So she may just say, well, isn't everybody? Because she's normalized it. But I'm here to talk about all of that and what her dad and I did. And she says, but I really want you to point out that she lives an anxious, depressed life. And I said, okay. So I mentioned this to Marla. I said, Marla, your mom's going to talk to you and give you messages today that are going to validate the way that you were raised right from the beginning. And I said, for example, your mom is saying that you were raised to be anxious and to be very depressed. And she goes, no. And I said, well, this is where your mom's trying to explain to you that because you've been raised this way, you wouldn't know life to be any different. She says, my mom wouldn't even talk like that.
I think a lot of people don't even know what anxious and depressed sounds like or looks like.
That's fair.
So when you say it, they don't necessarily know how to self-identify.
Right.
Because some people will only think about the extremes or a diagnosis and not be able to notice the signs within themselves.
Yeah. But then her next comment was, well, isn't everybody?
Well, and there's another thing, right, is that you've got highly functioning individuals in society who are anxious and depressed, like pretty much every single comedian out there, right, that has a Netflix special. They look successful. We're not necessarily saying, oh, here's all of our anxious and depressed people in society, right?
Right. Yeah.
And like you said, well, isn't everybody? So we disqualify it as being anxious and depressed because we think this is just the human experience.
Yeah. And I said to her, well, wait a minute, Marla. I said, you said you weren't. Mm-hmm. And I said, so you emphatically said that your mom was wrong and that meant this wasn't your mom? And then you said, well, isn't everybody? Meaning that I am.
With everyone else.
With everyone, yes. And I said, so you just said things that were contradicting. And she looked so pissed. She looked so annoyed at me.
Yeah. I'll just point out, and I'm sure it'll come up multiple times, but the ambiguity that the lack of clarity creates, right? So the contradictory information means there's no clarity, means that life is ambiguous. Thoughts, opinions, feelings are ambiguous, which drives up anxiety, which drives up depression.
Yes. Now, thank you for explaining that, but that didn't end up coming out in the session. Just to clarify for the story,
That's
okay? So the last thing I'm going to say in regards to the session was that she looks pissed off at me.
The last thing you're going to say.
The previous, pardon me, the previous
Oh, we're
thing.
recapping.
Recapping,
Okay. Jesus,
yes.
we're like 3 minutes in.
So then I said to her mom, "Oh, she's looking pissed at me." I said, what do you want to do? What do you want to say? And her mom says to me, "Well, get used to it, Karen," because she's not going to like some of the things that I have to say. And she says, "But let's go." So she tells me that she knew her husband. And she says, "You have to tell her that on Earth, I totally thought her husband was great because he's very aggressive. He's very take over, take control. I'm going to come in, be assertive, but right to the point of I'll bully, I'll tell her what to think, I'll tell her what to do."
And she thought this was great?
Absolutely. She thought this man was perfect for her daughter because she raised her daughter to be such a people-pleasing person, to people-please mom and dad. So she thinks the husband is going to come in and take care of her daughter.
How do you put those two things in a sentence? You're aggressive, and I believe you're going to take care of my person.
But that is totally her mom and her dad's thinking because of the way they behave and the way they've raised her.
So did they believe that their aggression was a form of care?
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah. And they raised...
All I see is like the racking up of dollar signs and therapy bills.
Yeah, that's fair. So they raised the two boys to be aggressive and assertive, but they raise her to people please in the family. And so her mom comes forward to say, I need to be honest. I need to come forth and tell her exactly how we raised her. I need to say to her, I'm sorry for these things. I want to point these things out to her, but it's not going to sound like it's me because I'm the one that did all of this to her. So good luck, Karen. Because she's not going to want to hear this. And I said, "Well, what else do you want to say?" So I can tell her all of that. I can offer her the acknowledgement. I know how to explain that when you've crossed over, you're able to see who you really were. I'm able to say and walk her through that process. I understand it and I can guide her. What else do you want to offer? And she says, "Well, I want to say things to her like that she goes to work and can't stand her job. Like she hates her job, but it's just a job and it pays the bills. So she keeps the job, but that she wishes that she could find something different, but she doesn't even know how to go about thinking about moving to another job because she doesn't even know how to go through a process of figuring out what else I could possibly like. Because she doesn't ever have a chance to figure out what it is she likes in life. She likes what everybody else tells her she likes, or what they like, or what they're cooking, or what they want to eat for dinner. So she says, I want you to explain this part about her job because I want her to see the correlation that she doesn't like her job but can't get out of it. And the reason that she can't get out of it is that she doesn't know how to think about anything that she likes. She doesn't even have the courage or any of the thoughts to think, how do I go about figuring out what I like? She can't do that. And I'm trying to say that her father and I are the ones that blocked her ability to create a process to figure out what she likes. She says, so I'm trying to own up to all of these things today. And she says, but it's going to be very difficult because her husband, her dad, and her two brothers are all her core people in life that keep these relationships going with her. So in order for her to start figuring out what it is that she even likes on a small level is going to have to go against the grain of her husband's beliefs and the way he behaves, her dad's, and her two brothers. So she's really buried all underneath all of this, and I helped bury her under it. I am the other woman in her life who did this to her, instead of a woman who helped her come outside of this. And she says, so like I'm trying to be a healthy woman finally, and I'm her mom. I'm the most significant person in her life. And they did the worst thing possible to another female. The worst. And she says, but now that I'm dead and I'm on the other side, my responsibility is to be honest. It is to tell her the truth. And she says, but it's a horrible thing to tell her because it means that she's going to have to start going against all of these core relationships, fundamental people in her life in order for her to figure out and live her own life. Mm-hmm. She says, it's a horrible situation that I've put my daughter in, the worst I could ever imagine. And she says, but I'm showing up to try and do my very best. And she says, and here you are, Karen. I need to give you the whole responsibility of doing this. So number one, I want to say thank you for being willing to do it for me, because there's no other opportunity for me. Every other opportunity is gone because I'm dead. And she says, so I'm going to thank you. But she says, this isn't going to be easy. My daughter's not going to appreciate it. And I'm just going to thank you for at least trying. And we're going to say, let's see how it goes. But I don't hold a lot of hope that it's going to go well for you. So I said, okay, I'm going to do my best shot. So that's what I told Marla. And I really did my best to explain to her at the very beginning of all of this that when we channel someone who's crossed over, we have two versions of them. We have dead mom, who's changed, who's grown, who has seen her ways on the other side, who wants to come through to tell truths, who wants to fix, who wants to heal, who wants to just come through and say, this was where I'm responsible for this mess I've created in your current life. Mm-hmm. And these things contribute, the way I raised you, contributes to what you believe are your blocks. What you believe, like you're trying to manifest, the right, like love and all these beautiful things in your life, the career that you want, and you're calling it blocks, but it's me. It's your father. It's the way we raised you. It's not that that the universe doesn't love you. It's what your parents and how we raised you and how those blocks have created blocks that you're not going to be able to manifest what you want. Try as you might. So I tried to explain this to her, dead mom, the version of dead mom, and the version of that's not going to jive with your memories of the mom you knew, the alive mom. And I did my best to explain that to Marla. She said nothing to me, nothing at all. It was just dead silence. And then I said, may I continue? And she said yes. So that was her only verbal word, was yes. And I told her then about how her mom and dad raised her to be this massive people-pleasing person. And all she said to me is, no, I'm not. She says, I thought maybe you were okay at the beginning because you gave me some facts that were correct, but clearly you don't know what you're doing. Clearly, this is not medium. And I don't know why you think you're going to get away with this. I am not a people pleaser. And she says, I love my husband. I love my dad. I love my brothers. She says, we have a very close family. And I don't think you know what you're doing. And I said, well, that makes sense if you just go into the fact that you want me to describe who your mom was when she was alive. And she goes, yes, you could do that. Let's see if you can. And I said, okay. So I went back to her mom. I said, how do you want to handle this? She just wants the mom that you used to be. And
But you have done that, which is a really interesting form of denial on a client's part, because you're talking behaviorally how she was raised, but you are illustrating the behaviors that were influenced by a particular belief system that mom had. So the behaviors are still correct, but because she doesn't want to see or understand the belief system that was underneath the passing on of the behaviors, she's denying the message being true.
yes.
So there's no alive mom and dead mom in that scenario, because you're still describing the behavior. It just sounds unfathomable that mom would describe the behaviors with that intention.
Correct.
We're having two different conversations.
Yeah.
Go on.
So mom came back and said, okay, I'm going to go back and just describe some of the facts because she's looking for facts. And I said, you can do whatever it is that you want. And I'm just going to deliver whatever it is that you want to say to your daughter today. And I said, that's my job. So you figure out how you want to handle what she's going through.
I find this really fascinating. So when Marla came in, what did she ask you for?
Mom.
So all she said was, I want mom.
Yep.
Okay. Never in my experience of channeling has someone come in and been like, hey, I would like for you to just simply describe what someone looked like, sounded like, and that will be enough for me. And here's why I say this. No one I've ever channeled for has ever truly felt that a description of someone's mere existence was all that they actually needed. No one comes to a medium and says, please describe this human that once existed because I need to believe that they existed. They want a few of those things, but then they want the message to know what the connection actually was. They're grieving something. They're grieving a feeling, which is a connection, or a missing connection that they actually wanted or wished for. Mm-hmm. So when they fixate on these messages of, well, what did they look like? Well, where did they work? Well, where all of the facts, it's insatiable. It's never going to be enough.
Yes.
Because they really actually, no matter how afraid they are, they want the message underneath to say, was I loved? Did I matter to this person? And what's hard about Marla's story is that she's hearing, in fact, I mattered, but my mom couldn't see it, and my mom devalued my importance while she was alive. And now she's getting it while she's on the other side. And I bet you that is too much to grieve and too much to process. So she wants you to go back to the facts.
Yes.
Because being anxious and being depressed will feel safer than understanding her mom destroyed her.
Thank you.
I had my whole cup of coffee.
You've done such an incredible job. And so I thank you for the listeners on their behalf, what you've just done. And I'm going to get back into the session. Mm-hmm. So mom says to me, okay, fine, look at me. Like this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I can see her clearly right in front of me.
And not all clients are lucky enough to get that.
That's correct.
Not all spirits are going to say, okay, let's do this. Some of them will say, fuck it.
Exactly. So her mom goes, look at me. And I looked at her and she had like red hair, green eyes. And I said, oh, okay. She goes, that's pretty distinguishing. And I said, well, depending on the family, depending on everything. She goes, yeah, but my daughter doesn't. My daughter has black hair. She's got blue eyes. She looks like her dad. And I'm like, okay, but that still might not be enough, right?
It never will be.
Yeah. And she goes, what? And her mom's like, what? And I said, no, go ahead. Give me a little bit more. She goes, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And I said, no, I'd be willing.
You raised her.
Yeah. I said, I'd be willing to bet you she's going to need more than that. So give me a couple more. And she goes, oh my goodness, Karen, really?
Oh my God. You could tell a client that they have a third nipple when they are wearing a snowsuit in their session and they'd be like, so?
Exactly. And I said, no, look at Mom. I actually need more. She goes, oh my God, humans. And I went, yes, you get that now. But when you were on Earth, you probably would have done the same damn thing to me. And she goes, oh, like this. And I said, just go on, just show me more. And she goes, okay. She goes, I'm going to show you that I always wore dress pants. And they were dress pants, not jeans, not khakis, dress pants. She goes, even in downtime, dress pants, blouses, not t-shirts, not sweatshirts, blouses, buttons, collars, not blouses with, no collars, pointy collars. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she goes, and flowery shirts, flower prints, large flowers, small flowers. She goes, is this enough for you? And I went, oh, it's not me, honey. It's your daughter. It's not me. I don't need this.
Yeah,
And she goes, oh, okay. So then I said to Marla, okay, I said, Marla, your mom has graced us with her presence in terms of that she's giving me what she looks like. And I did say to her, and I don't get to see that for everybody. And I said, so I do want to just explain that she's showing me something. And she goes, yeah, okay. And I said, well, she's got red hair when she was younger and green eyes. And she goes, no, they weren't green, they were hazel. And I said, oh, I gonna leave that be? And I said, because she shows me green. And then she kind of snickers a little bit. And then I said, and she shows me dress pants, and always dress pants. And she goes, yep. And I said, and then you can see her starting to smile. You can see Marla's like, oh, I'm happy now. This is what I'm paying you for. And I said, and she shows me blouses with buttons. Well, all blouses are with buttons, Karen. And I said, no, they're not.
And some of them are 2 buttons, and some of them are full-length buttons.
Yeah. And
some of them are zippers.
Yeah.
And some of them are pullovers.
Yeah. And I said, no. I said, Marla, I said, now you're just being mean. I said, now you're being mean to me. I said, that's enough. I said, that's not acceptable. I said, every woman knows there are all kinds of blouses. And I said, and I'm not going to get into an argument with a client about what kinds of blouses exist in this world. I don't even know what country you're sitting in. And I said, I don't want to get engaged in this kind of a conversation or kind of confrontation with a client. It isn't my intention to fight about blouses. I'm trying to give you messages from your mom.
No,
and
facts.
Yeah, pardon me. Thanks, Kelly. Messages and facts from your mom because you're trying to connect to her. And I said, I'm not looking for a fight. And I said, I see that you're willing to get into one and I don't want to. And I said, so I'm just going to go back and listen to your mom a little bit more. And I said, but does that describe your mom? The blouse, and I said, oh, in small print and large print of flowers. She says, not plain blouses or striped, but she had a certain style. And she goes, yep. She goes, Mom, that part's correct. So then her mom says to me, we're running out of time. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yes, she just booked a half hour. She didn't want to give you a whole hour. Mm-hmm. She booked half. And she booked half on purpose because her husband doesn't even believe in what you do. They want to shut this kind of stuff down in this kind of house. But she was curious because they've been watching it on TV. So you could give the validation that they're watching a woman on TV, not any of the men mediums on TV. It's a female. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, is it the Long Island medium by any chance? And she goes, oh, no, not even in that country. No, that's not the medium. And I went, oh, okay, I was just looking for another fact. And she goes, no, another one. She says, but you could say that. So I said, oh, okay. So I said, Marla, your mom is saying that your husband and your dad and your sons don't believe in mediums and that you don't either. But the reason that you booked this appointment with me was simply because you've been watching it on TV. You're curious and you like the factual part and like where they actually give the, she had the red hair, green eyes, that kind of thing.
Hazel.
Hazel. Well,
I'm just being a bitch.
I said green. And okay. And I said, is that correct? And she goes, yeah. And I said, and you're watching a female medium, but it's not the Long Island medium. And she goes, Who's the Long Island medium? And I said, oh, that's good enough. That's telling me that that's correct. I said, that's fine. And she goes, Karen, she says, I don't think you know what you're doing. She says, and I don't like my session. She says, I don't think that you have had my mom accurately at all. And I said, well, that's not true. I said, several times you have told me how I've described her, the facts about family, genetics, like down the line. And she goes, well, other than that. And I said, well, that's actually all of the stuff I called factual information. I said, what you didn't like were the messages because they go against the grain of what you wanted to hear from your mom. And I said, and you don't want to hear the acknowledgement of how you were raised. You don't want to hear her apology or her acknowledgement. And I said, and I'm sorry about that because that's your choice. And I said, but that's not something I can control as the giver of your messages. Every client has the right to accept or to refute the message. I said, and I'm sorry that, that's how you feel, but I've done the best that I can for you. And she goes, fine. So that was the end of the session. It was just done. It was just done. And quite a bit of time goes by, I've got to tell you. I think it must be at least a couple of years. And I heard from her recently, and she called to say that she had seen me years ago. And I said, oh, okay. So I was just sitting down on the swing outside on the deck. And she said, I saw you several years ago. She says, do you remember my session? And I said, no.
Unless you were a DD? No.
That's a good comment. That's so good. And I said, no. I said, I don't, but I don't remember people's sessions. I said, don't take that personally. Well, I would have thought that you would have remembered me.
Oh, good.
Like this. And I said, okay, can you tell me why? Like I said,
Because I was so mean to you?
And she said, well, you couldn't get my mom. You couldn't do the reading. That's what she said. And I said, oh. I said, and again, I'm just sitting outside on the swing and I have no idea what she's talking about. And I said, I'm really sorry, Marla. I said that, you had a session that you obviously are not happy with. What brings you to calling me today? So I'm trying to get her
yeah, get to the point.
What are you here for?
You just called to ruin my day?
Yeah. And I said,
Imagine I'm just calling to remind you that you're still bad at your job.
Right. I said, so what brings you to this call, to calling me today? And she says, well, I thought I should get in touch with you and just sort of give you an update. She says, I recorded my session and I played it for my daughter. And my daughter took the recording and played it for my son and my husband. And she says, and I didn't realize that she did this.
Oh, shit.
And I went, oh, okay. And I said, so something has happened. And I said, are you calling to share something? And she said, well, yeah. She says, my daughter said, or came up to me with my sons and said they wanted to confront me. And they brought my husband into the conversation. And so the 3 kids...
And your aggressive husband.
...have approached us and said that they listened to the session and they wanted to know what we thought of it. And she says, so I told them, you didn't know what you were doing, that you didn't clearly get my mom, that you got lucky and got a few things right. That's what she said to me. Mm-hmm. And my daughter said, no, she told you the truth about grandma. She told you the truth about grandma and grandpa. And the daughter said, Mom, I listened to the recording and I listened to the details of how grandma and grandpa raised you and our 2 uncles. And it was spot on. And I pointed it out to my brothers that is exactly what you and Dad have done to me and to my 2 brothers. And the 3 of us are mad at you guys.
Right on.
And she says, so now, she says, you have destroyed my family. She said, and she starts crying on the phone.
This is what Marla said?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You've destroyed my family. She says, my husband and I are livid with you. And I'm just listening, saying absolutely nothing, just taking it in. And she goes, my daughter and my 2 sons have told us that they are going something that's called no contact.
You saved 3 lives.
Yeah, girl.
Rock on.
And she says, and now they've told us up front that they are not talking to us anymore and that they have decided that they are going to figure it out together and raise their kids and they want nothing to do with us. So we are cut out of our grandbabies' lives. And so I'm calling to tell you how angry I am at you. And she's livid with me. And I am sitting on my swing, swinging, looking at the sky.
I just want everyone to know, too, that Karen is 5'1.5", and her legs were probably kicking up like a childlike sort
I'm
of...
5'2".
Okay. That's a different conversation. But they were probably kicking up very childlike in glee.
Yes.
I love it. So she called to say how fucking accurate you actually were.
Yes.
And that all the messages gave clarity, relief, and direction to her 3 kiddos.
Yes.
And because of their personal responsibility, they will be breaking the intergenerational patterns.
Yes. I was...
Oh, Marla.
I was thrilled. She was livid with me. And it was like the angrier she got, the happier I got.
Okay. She's probably a 9 on the Enneagram. What I love about this, and maybe she'll call you in another 3 years, is that it sounds like she went to sleep to her own life out of necessity as a defense mechanism from the way she was raised. So I'm saying this with a lot of compassion and empathy for Marla and where she comes from and how that development of her personality helped her survive an aggressive, hostile home. So the going to sleep to her own life made it possible for her to get by, right? And then she walked into the same kind of environment for her own household and continued the same patterns because it was familiar and that's how she knew to get by.
Which is why her parents thought this man was perfect.
Yeah.
And why Marla falls in love with this guy and her parents love him. And she feels, oh, I've got mommy and daddy's approval. This is the perfect partner. He's going to take care of me. I'm not going to have to fight my own battles. I'm not going to have to think for myself.
And that could have gone one of 2 ways. But anyway, that unfolds. But she's got to have buried that rage and anger from that message in her childhood that she didn't matter, right? So that's anger buried for how many years, I don't know. Her kids are old enough to say we're going no contact. So that's at least 20 years, I'm going to say, right? And now she's finally able to access her rage. And it's coming out sideways. I'm not congratulating her because it's not being channeled or funneled in the right way or in the appropriate direction. It is coming out though. So perhaps this is the cracking of the egg for her where she can access the rage, finally start to feel it. And even though it's not being placed in the right direction, maybe just the access to it will begin something new for her.
Yeah. And I mean, if Marla calls back and says, I'd like another session with you, I want to talk to mom or I want to talk to my soul, and she wants to actually get some work done.
Or I want to talk to my alive children to find out why they're going no contact with me.
Yes. I'd be happy to do it. I'd be totally here for her.
Yeah, and under some healthy circumstances that she's not going to abuse you again.
Yeah. And I would appreciate that opportunity to be able to sit with her and move her forward too and give her some clarity. I'm sure after a lifetime of living like this, a little bit of clarity could help her a lot. Yeah. So that wraps everything up. The conversation ended in such a way that she was crying and angry with me. And
Karen says, okay then.
yeah, honestly, Kelly, I don't even really know that Marla really heard anything I said at the end. And I realized that. So I just said goodbye. I didn't thank her for calling. I didn't go over the top to do anything. I just simply said goodbye to her.
Okay.
Now, I thought this was a great podcast show to share.
It's fucking phenomenal.
I thought it was a great session for people to live with or to listen to.
To live with. Sure. Why not?
There was a slip.
Yeah, you do. You have to sit here and go, okay, if I've had a session before, did I focus on facts? Did I allow messages? What intention did I come in with? Where did I fixate? Right? Did I actually get what I needed, or did I just surface level pat myself and say, okay, cool, I've got messages, or I saw a medium? Like, hopefully we're always talking about draw your own parallels from these individual stories. Whether you had a mother like Marla or not, what were you like as a client? Would you walk in and want the same things and want to be that obstinate, right?
Yeah.
I think there's tons of lessons to draw out of today's show that people can live with. Thanks for listening to Coffee with the Sarlos. If you enjoyed the show today, help spread the love with a like, share, or review of the podcast. See you next Saturday with a brand new episode.